Okay. So we're streaming to Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter. We're about to start the Gillmor gang.
And Joe Rogan. We're streaming to Joe Rogan.
No, we're not doing that.
$100 million a year. No wonder nobody.
Okay, we're going to cover that as soon as we get on the air.
Okay. I'm going to start.
Set this, brother.
All right. Places everybody quiet on the set, and then here we go. And mute is off. And we're going to go in 3, 2, 1, and.
Hi, that was perfect.
Oh, thank you, sir.
This is the Gillmor Gang, and I'm Steve Gillmor. Now, I'd like to begin by saying hi. Welcome back to Frank Radis. Welcome, Frank.
Hello, Steve. Hello, gang. It's a pleasure to be back. So much to talk about, so little time.
Except for the so little time reference, I'm good with that. I don't need to be reminded of that.
Jeez, what a dark way.
Tons of time. We got tons of time.
Hey, we're going right through dark, right straight through to white.
Happy.
Okay. In California,
Oh, that's good.
just is Keith Tier. Welcome, Keith.
Keith, you're muted.
That's excellent. And Joe Rogan. We're streaming. Okay, so
Oh,
now
I
we're
was
hearing.
muted. I was muted, but I'm back now.
We know that, and I'm hearing.
I'm muted because my gardener's mowing the lawn. Can you hear it in the background?
It's
No.
you. Okay, we're going to start again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Why?
because I want to.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Re-rack. Give me a visual, Steve, on that re-rack. Okay. All right. Mute is off, and we're gonna go in 3, 2, 1, and.
Hi, Steve Gillmor here. This is the Gillmor Gang. I'd like to welcome Keith Tier back from his misfiring camera. Did you want to go through and tell us again about all those numbers?
All those numbers like f1.8 and ISO 6400. No, I don't think so. I think I'll just say, hi, everyone. Nice to be on the gang this week.
Okay, excellent. You're. Are we going
And by the way,
No.
you remember last week? I bought an electric car yesterday.
What?
Which one?
The Ford Mustang GT Performance.
Oh,
Wow.
Key.
Ooh.
Okay, well, we'll get to that in a second. Joining us from London, England, is Frank Radis.
Hello there, Steve. Hello, gang. So much to talk about. So much time to talk about it with.
There you go.
Perfect.
This is the magic of take 3. Okay.
Can I be next?
Yes,
I have
sir.
a specific reason. My Uber Eats was running late and it just got delivered. So, hi, I'm Brent Leary, and I'm about to leave you for a couple of minutes to get my food before it gets cold.
Perfect. And super out. Bye. Okay. From the Seattle, Washington area is Michael Markman.
How do you do? It's a fine day here in Seattle, uncharacteristically not raining.
Yay.
But we wouldn't know from the artificial background.
Well, that's true.
Okay.
That's why I give you the verbal.
I appreciate it. I appreciate being able to hear anything. And from the state of the investigation of Massachusetts
Very confusion.
is Dennis Pombriand. Welcome, Dennis.
Hi, Steve. I just want to say this might be my last show for a while. In the next 24 hours, I'm going to get about 2 feet of snow, 78 mile an hour winds, and various other things. So I'm going to be in survival mode.
Oh no.
And that'll go for about a week, right? So you'll be ready for rocking the following Friday.
Well, maybe. I mean, the governor's snow removal plan is codenamed July.
Oh my God. And it was funny too.
Yeah.
When I was living in that area, I remember that snow removal was not one of the core competencies. When it snowed, it stayed.
Yeah. In the real towny sections of Boston, people will go out and shovel out parking spaces on the street, and then they will put summer lawn furniture in the space to designate it as theirs. And the governor or the mayor of Boston last year or a few years ago said, no, you can't do that anymore. We're going to remove the furniture and anybody can park there. And that has been the source of a lot of trash and some fisticuffs. So who knows what we can expect next.
Wow.
Speaking of that, what do we think about the Spotify situation?
You want to do this without Brent?
Yeah.
Well,
I've got a good dry cleaner.
within their right mind, regardless of what you think of Joe Rogan, who in their right mind, after knowing that it was a $100 million deal, would have thought that Spotify would not have gone with Joe Rogan. I just,
Yeah.
Well, I know one person who figured it would happen that way.
Well,
Neil
I
Young.
don't know. I doubt that Neil Young thought he would win that battle.
exactly.
But remember,
Right.
he got a fine consolation prize. Sirius
Publicity.
XM just renewed his exclusive channel.
Yeah.
So I'm sure his revenue from that is much more than he was getting for Spotify plays.
Yeah, and more people have heard his name in the last 5 days than have heard it in the last few years, I think.
Old
Yeah.
man, take a look at yourself. You're a lot like me.
Yeah, the yourself is not the lyric, by the way.
I know.
It's better to burn out than to rust.
So I think
And if I rest, I rust.
I think it's pretty hard not to support Spotify despite your
Oh,
nose
yeah,
over
sure
Rogan.
you.
Really?
Okay.
Really?
Where's that mute button?
Cancellation, guys.
Oh, absolutely.
Audience,
I'm all about canceling.
rise up against Gillmor. He's canceling me.
No, I'm not canceling you.
Oh.
I'm canceling the view of you on my TV.
That's an interesting
Yeah.
distinction.
Yeah. Well, it is the distinction. I am going to be canceling my Spotify account because I think that their response to the misinformation coming out of Joe Rogan is not something that I want to support economically.
I think that's a different story, and I'm exactly where you are with that, Steve. I don't want to be giving them any more of my time, energy, or money because of that. But not because of a single artist who says that I'm not going to put my music on your network. No, I think he made a good point. He made a stand. He got publicity. He got his XM show renewed. All that's great. And I even posted one of his songs this morning on my newsletter. So
I love his songs.
Yeah.
I always have. But I would say that I've never given Spotify money anyway. I'm an Apple Music subscriber, and that is good enough for me. And I've got no time at all for Rogan.
Yeah.
But he's got a perfect right to his misinformation. It's not like it's illegal to.
Yeah, and they have a perfect right to pay him
Not
$100
pay,
million
yeah.
a year.
Can I read to you a statement that Spotify issued in April to The Verge? Quote, Spotify prohibits content on the platform which promotes dangerous, false, deceptive, or misleading content about COVID-19 that may cause offline harm and or pose a direct threat to public health. When content that violates this standard is identified, it is removed from the platform.
Ooh.
well, there you go.
Unless we've paid $100 million for it.
Yeah.
There it is.
Well, you gotta like Neil Young for what he did. He took a moral stand. That's what this is about. This is about morals, not money, not $100 million. And if anything, Neil Young got some airplay perhaps and some recognition, but he also caused the information universe to realize that Rogan is no friend to democracy, and that's worth something.
Yeah.
But I wonder if he had taken the tactic that Blinken and Biden took with regards to Putin, if he had worked to get allies to join him and issued a joint statement with some other A-list artists, would that have made any difference?
Well,
I don't understand why.
Years old.
This isn't a political act on his part. When he
Of
wrote,
course it is.
no, I don't think so. That's not. I think what is. I mean, the man is a polio survivor. I mean, let's get real about this. Vaccines save lives.
Amen.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, in somewhat related but orthogonal news, one of the members of the Washington State Legislature, who's been an opponent of public health measures, has just died of COVID.
The problem with all this,
Let's send them flowers.
It's like we're participating in kind of a moral panic. The truth is, he can say what he wants. It doesn't matter. It's not illegal, and we can disagree with it, and we don't need to have a witch hunt against him because we disagree with him.
Well, I don't know what witch hunt you're talking about. You sound like you're trying to continue expressing your opinion that this is cancellation, which I think is totally beside the point.
Well, the point is,
why are we still talking about?
Well, because Neil Young,
your thesis.
It's
Why
not
are
my
we still talking?
thesis. It's Neil Young's thesis.
No,
Neil
it's
Young's,
not.
Neil Young.
He said
Neil
you
Young
can have one or
Neil
the
Young,
other.
Neil Young is asking for something he shouldn't be asking for, and Spotify is doing the right thing.
I
What's so
disagree.
controversial about that?
I disagree with your point. Number one,
That said, I agree with Neil Young.
Said you can have one or the other, and he put his music where his mouth is and took himself off of that network.
Yeah, but
He's done it before.
his demand prior to that was illegitimate.
Keith, Michael just read these terms of service that Spotify had
And
announced.
Spotify clearly doesn't think that he's doing that.
Well,
Or
Let's read some of Rogan's misinformation and see how bad it is.
okay.
Well, the point is
Let's
he-
not read misinformation on this show. Thank you very much.
But the point is, once again, some of us are demonstrating that we're not actually democratic, or that we're actually authoritarian.
Keith, I think you missed the point. And I just put in the chat a short definition of crimes against humanity, which I've been advocating people like Greg Abbott and Ron DeSantis qualify for. Crimes against humanity are certain acts that are purposefully committed as part of a widespread or systematic policy directed against civilians in times of war or peace. I think anybody who purposefully goes about and tells you that vaccines don't work, or vaccines can hurt you, or don't get a vaccine, or any of that other stuff are skating dangerously close to the thin ice.
So you can say that, Dennis, but
I just did.
But when you say that, what you're saying is some ideas should be banned. And
Yes.
I disagree with that on the face of it. An idea can never be a crime, ever.
Not true. Not true. We have libel laws. We have all kinds of safeguards built into our society that say, yeah, you're free, but you're not free to yell fire in a crowded theater.
But I agree with Steve that we've rehearsed this argument many times, and it probably is going around in circles. So I apologize. I don't mean to stir it up, but I do stick to my point. I don't need to debate it, but I honestly think that Spotify, had no alternative but to defend Rogan.
I think Neil Young did a morally just and commendable thing.
I also agree with that, funnily enough. I'm fine for Neil Young to disagree with Rogan right up to the point of taking his stuff off. I'm not okay with him asking Spotify to take Rogan down.
I think that was part of a calculated plan to get extra publicity for or against Rogan.
That I'm okay with that too. I'm also okay with that. I just don't want people I disagree with to be banned. I'd rather have a debate with them.
Well, in some cases that's good. In other cases, 100 years ago, Oliver Wendell Holmes declared the standard of clear and present danger to society for what's tolerable and what's not tolerable.
Yeah, but society,
it's been held up.
And there's also Moynihan's point that you're entitled to your own opinion. You're not entitled to your own facts.
Actually, you are, because facts are not actually facts, are they? They're beliefs.
No, they're
What?
facts.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Well,
No, we
Keith,
have math.
Keith,
We have math
is this
for
the
that.
same?
Keith.
there are
Is this the same?
there are facts, but in the area of COVID, there's a small number of facts and a massive amount of beliefs.
Keith, you can't paint everything with that brush. If you want to say there are some beliefs that need to be expunged, tell us what they are.
So I'll say it's a fact that capitalism sucks. Is that a fact? I think it is.
Even Churchill would agree with you.
I mean, facts are highly politicized, is my point, and especially in this area. And as we're moving into the Omicron and post-Omicron era, where the range of opinions about what we should do about COVID is amongst every political demographic, there's a wide range of opinions now. It's pretty hard.
That's the problem, though.
Keith, did Joe Biden win the election? Did Joe Biden win the election? Was there massive fraud that stole the election from Joe Biden that was actually won by Trump?
How is that?
Is that a fact? Is that a fact or not a fact?
If I could,
Is this an opinion?
It's a fact that
Actually, that's an alternative
that I have
fact.
4 fingers and a thumb. So there are facts, but in the area of COVID, there's also a lot of beliefs.
well,
Yes,
Keith,
sure.
the problem with that analysis is that you're treating the beliefs of Joe Sixpack the same as the beliefs of Joe researcher with an MD PhD in virology. And you can't do that.
I'm not. I think I disagree.
Yeah, I think you are. You just said
No,
you just
because
said
I disagree with every one of his beliefs, but I don't think he should be banned from Spotify for having them.
Well, no. Go back to what you said about beliefs, about constituencies and beliefs. Every constituency has its own beliefs. Look, there are a lot of people that have beliefs that aren't backed up by anything. It's just because they need a way to explain the world to themselves.
We all do. Look, all of us do. All of us do that to one degree or another.
Sure.
Usually in a benign, not very dangerous way. And with COVID, yeah, it can be extremely dangerous. There's no doubt about that. If people catch onto those beliefs and act on them, it can be dangerous. But you still can't, the minute you get into that area and start deciding what is and what is not okay, you start to curate humanity's intellectual acceptable framework.
And that's okay. That's what we do as sentient beings. We separate the wheat from the chaff.
That's okay, but then you've got to acknowledge the kind of Animal Farm or Big Brother element of that.
Well, you know what? We're a republic that's lived on that idea for almost 250 years. You bring your facts, you go to court, you adjudicate, and you get a decision, and it's worked pretty well. So, I don't have a lot of patience with anybody.
No, but Dennis,
whose backup is a novelist, whether it's George Orwell or Ayn Rand.
No, but what you just did then, when you talked about the courts, that would be right, except he hasn't gone to court because he hasn't done a crime.
Well, the court is the judicial representation of the scientific method.
And is
What I'm
Rogan,
talking
is
about
Rogan accused of anything that a court would preside over?
We're not talking about Rogan. We're talking about how we adjudicate beliefs. We're talking about how in this society there are experts and there are people who have beliefs. And getting to the truth means going to the experts.
I think that's generally true. I agree with that. But you know, if you listen to the Israeli head of science in charge of COVID in Israel, his belief is that the lockdown was a waste of time and should be ended. And if you talk to the Swedish expert or the British expert, they have different points of view. And if you talk to Fauci, he has a different point of view. So even experts disagree.
For good reason. If you live in a Mediterranean climate, the lockdown doesn't make sense because people get COVID primarily because they occupy enclosed spaces, whether it's air conditioned or heated. So in Stockholm, it might make sense to have a lockdown and make sure everybody wears masks. In a Mediterranean climate, it might make more sense to let people go outside.
Yeah, well,
and that is what the experts do.
Yeah, but you're making, I think what the points you're making are really important and really interesting to discuss, which is what is the line between expertise and opinion, and what should be litigated and what shouldn't?
I think we're going way off course by debating something which is not at stake. What's at stake is whether or not people, artists like Neil Young, feel that they should be supporting on any level a private enterprise that supports the kind of misinformation that is supported by Joe Rogan.
I think it's okay. I'm with you on that. He's got
okay. Good.
Right.
Then
I have to excuse myself for just a minute.
We win.
All right.
I would like to talk a little bit about what Michael said. Yeah. The position of Spotify was, and how they've managed to just completely forget it, avoid it, not let it be part of the regular conversation. I think that's really important. That Spotify itself laid out a position that they no longer agree with because of, I assume, money.
Yeah, they carved out an exception.
Yeah, it's kind of like alternative facts.
Well, I think the original error was the terms and conditions in the first place. If they're defined broadly in the way that it's being suggested they should be, it feels to me as if the right thing to do is to not allow criminal behavior of any kind, things that break the law, and then just leave it at that.
No, part of the problem is that the law is an evolving thing, and you have to keep up with it. In fact, we've never had a pandemic like we have. We've never had the communications technologies that we have to spread disinformation. We need a societal rethink about how we communicate. This is the sort of the primary case for that.
Something that I would worry about, and I would wonder what you would think about this, Keith. So there's a few people, and I've forgotten their names right now, on the right, who have recently equated some of the vaccine not mandates, but what we want to do with vaccines, what we want to do with COVID restrictions to the Nazis. Okay, so
in other words, by forcing individuals to do what society wants, you're removing individual rights.
So if you've got the GOP not condemning these people who are equating this with Nazism. And then you've got Joe Rogan, who is also there on the right. What if he starts to spout this kind of talk? Is that okay?
Well, I think we've got to break down, is it okay, into some meaning. Is it okay for people to have racist, sexist, anti-gay and so on views? No, that's not okay. That's not okay. Is it okay for us to ban them because they have those views? No, it is not. We have to disagree with them and educate the people who are listening on why we're right and they're wrong.
But the platform itself said that it wasn't going to tolerate this. So, if Joe Rogan would start to go, Nazi on them, and they're paying him all this money, are they going to be okay with keeping him on the air?
Well, I can only speak if it was me. If it was me, I would put, whoever I could get, let's say Jon Stewart, on a competing show, saying why he has a different point of view. In other words, in an open society, you don't close down difference of opinion. What you do is you
don't necessarily
prosecute crimes. You prosecute
millions of
crimes.
dollars for it, though, either.
Sorry,
Frank, what do you think
sorry,
about
Tina.
it?
I was talking over you, so I didn't hear you. Say that again.
Sorry, I was talking over you.
But I didn't hear you.
I think that it's time for some kind of regulation on public. It's not airways in terms of what Rogan is broadcasting on. Spotify is an internet thing. It's time for some kind of regulation. I think these things. I disagree with you, Keith. I do believe that those kinds of things that you described a minute ago should not be in the public domain. That they're harmful, and that something should be done. I mean, it's funny. There ought to be a law. That's how I think.
One of the issues that I would raise to what Keith is talking about, where you have someone putting forth an opinion and someone else putting forth the opposing opinion. The problem is those two people are talking to different audiences.
Yep.
It's not like a courtroom where you have one jury and two opposing counsel, and the jury gets to judge between them. What's happening is completely different because of the dynamics of siloing audiences. So, we used to have it, pardon me, we used to have a fairness doctrine and an equal time doctrine, which said that if the broadcaster puts this candidate on, the same broadcaster has to put the opposing candidate on. You don't have people opposing this opinion appearing to the same audience. So, we're talking about a different kind of universe. There's one universe in which you say, there's the court of public opinion, and I will say this, you will say that, and the public can decide. But we don't have that. We have segmented audiences, and each one gets their own set of alternative facts.
Michael, you made me think of what just happened to OAN. Now, they were essentially taken off of the AT&T platform, even though AT&T was essentially their biggest financial supporter. Originally people were saying, they got rid of them because of their radical opinions and their use of misinformation and so on and so forth. And later that seemed to have devolved into they're off the air because of for financial reasons, because they weren't getting the kind of support from audiences that was big enough to keep them on the platform and so on. And so it's like the decisions, nobody knows what the real decision is. But the point is, it feels like, OAN got taken off the air because of that. Who's more powerful than Spotify? Who would take Spotify off the air? Nobody. They're not a cable channel. Once OAN goes to what I believe they'll do is go to the internet, they're just back on. and their same audience will follow them there. Exactly what you were saying. It's a different audience that's listening to things that they want to be supported of, that they believe
Right, and
supports their
the
opinion.
the people competing for OAN's audience are Fox News, and Fox News has
Yeah.
moved more to the right, more radical, and so OAN was a threat to Fox News, and Fox News has countered by making Tucker Carlson, the chief Putin apologist in America.
And getting really big ratings, actually starting to get numbers that are competitive with cable, with other cable entertainment type shows. I think he had 4.5 million viewers the night before last, it's a pretty significant number in that universe.
Part of the problem is that even though I don't watch Fox News, I am sending some of my to Fox News if I'm subscribed to Comcast, because they have a carriage agreement with the cable carriers that says we get so much per subscriber. So it doesn't matter whether the subscriber is watching them or not.
Yeah.
It's part of the cable bundling universe.
Now there, Newsmax apparently has also been moved off of a number of cable carriers around the country. I don't think it's been as many or as powerful as moving off of OAN and what happened to them. And Newsmax has actually probably got a higher ratings than OAN anyway, but they're actually being hurt too. Does one get a sense that there is a liberalizing of the airwaves happening? Dennis.
I don't get that sense.
Well,
One other factor with Fox News, we have mentioned on a number of broadcasts the anchor appeal of sports and live events, and how broadcasters and streamers are competing to be able to run live events. One thing to remember is that Fox News is presented to the cable industry in a bundle with Fox Sports. So it's not that easy to get rid of Fox News if you're a cable operator, because then you'd lose one of your key anchors, which is Fox Sports.
yeah.
Well,
Lucky them.
my feeling is that Neil Young did this many years ago with the song Ohio. 4 dead in Ohio, Nixon bombing, we're finally on our own, et cetera, et cetera. He was presenting his moral, as I think somebody said here, his moral judgment about our involvement. At the time, I believe that we were bombing Cambodia, that was not a legal operation in terms of world norms. In fact, we denied that we were bombing Cambodia at that point.
That's right.
So he produced this song and performed it with Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and it was an amazing track. Stood out on its own. I can still remember the lyrics 50 years later, whatever it is. And I think that we will remember this action, regardless of its economic impact. The only thing that I've seen negative about his desire not to be associated with a private company that is supporting misinformation. The only negative thing has been some analysis of the size of his audience versus, yada, yada. I don't think that's why he said what he said. I don't think that's why he did what he did. I don't think that's why Warner Brothers Records supported his action. I think that this is, basically enough is enough.
But
Interestingly enough, Steve, I think that
I'm not really looking for Keith, before we get into that argument again, I'm not looking for a back and forth about this. I'm trying to express how I feel about it.
No, I get that.
Okay.
I was going to say that I think the people who didn't spend or haven't spent any time listening to anything that Joe Rogan has said since he did that wacky show on NBC where he ate bugs and drank mule pee, or the cast members did, that's what they know Joe Rogan as. And this has brought a different Joe Rogan into the public eye for people who didn't pay any attention to him. And it's put a black mark against Spotify for those people who see this as a valid argument.
Yep. It's a question of demographics and age cohorts. Neil Young, if you're
When Neil Young was,
if you're
singing
over 40, you may
Ohio,
wonder who Neil Young is. If you're under 40, you may wonder if you're under 40, you might wonder who Neil Young is. And if you're over 40, you might wonder who Joe Rogan is. And if you're over 60, you might wonder what Spotify is.
That's true.
I don't think it's about age at all. I think this is about when he sang Ohio, he was probably 21 or 22 at that point. Was he singing to the kids? No, he was singing to the radio. He was singing to the thing that when Sgt. Pepper was released, you could walk down the street in Boston, as I did, and it was coming out of every window, everywhere.
I sometimes wonder if my parents ever heard that.
That song, people heard.
They probably heard "Fly Me to the Moon," but I don't know if they heard "For Dead in Ohio."
It was a
Kent
pretty
State
great
happened,
track, and I think a lot of people heard it.
But when Kent State happened, I think a lot of people, when they put the two together, I remember my mother had heard the song, and her immediate reaction was to think about those images, those incredible black and white photos of that girl with her hand on her chest and her arm up over that dead body. That image is indelibly etched in a lot of people's minds, and even people who weren't around then know about Kent State.
Yeah, I mean, if these rock and roll musicians weren't as important as they were, then Nixon wouldn't have sent the plumbers after them.
So what I was going to say is not at all to respond to you, Steve, in an argumentative way, but just to acknowledge that this is a really important conversation about what we want society to look like in the digital realm. If you roll the clock forward 5 years or 10 years, when there's an unknown set of political variables going to come into play, and the issue of the right to an opinion arises, any precedent that says that there's a limited scope to what's acceptable, as long as it's legal, to me, doesn't augur well for what the future turns out to be. And we all look at China and Russia and quite rightly criticize them for the limits they place on freedom for their citizens. And just because we're in the middle of a very, very partisan political period here in the US, I think doesn't mean we should lower our standards when it comes to those things.
Of course we should, Keith. I mean, that's what we've always done. That's what every democracy is.
Wait, there's a fire in the
That's
theater. Let's not lower our standards and let anybody know.
That's
it.
an easy argument. You all know what I'm saying.
a good one. Yeah.
You're just
No,
looking for-
I know. No.
Yes,
I think
you're equating decisions made by a state with decisions made by a private enterprise that runs their own platform and their own and can set their own standards.
No, but I'm defending.
The Justice Department isn't saying dumb Joe Rogan.
I'm actually defending the private enterprise for its right to take the decision it took. I'm not criticizing the private enterprise.
Well, that's an opinion, and that's fine. Everything that you say about what you think Spotify has done or not done is your opinion. And, I've liked Spotify. I've been paying for Spotify. I didn't even realize I was paying for Spotify. But my daughter has a playlist of 2,000 songs, and it's not going to be easy to move it over, but it will be moved over in good time, because and I think Joe Rogan is funny. I've only seen him once, which was on a documentary on what was that? A comedy documentary where about the Comedy Store.
Mm.
Yeah, and he was on the show, and he's a funny individual. What he's saying today, right now, is not funny. It's dangerous.
To peel the onion one layer more, it's not so much what Joe Rogan is saying. It's the fact that Joe Rogan, who does an interview show, is giving a platform to other people who are saying things.
Yeah.
That's true too. Yes.
Yes. And by the way, it also says that Spotify in some way, odd way, Spotify is saying these things too.
Well, that's the feeling that I got. Up until that point, I thought, okay, that's interesting. Neil Young is doing what he's been doing for years. But Spotify's reaction to it was to clothe themselves in the mantle of free speech and free enterprise, which I think they have every right to. And I also have every right to disconnect from it, which I am.
Yeah.
Okay.
By the way, I understand all of your points of view completely. I think it's entirely.
Well, I think that's true for me as well. I understand your point of view as well.
I don't think anybody wants to put a muzzle on free speech. I don't think that's what anybody wants.
Oh, I do.
Well, yeah, you have said
What a
that a couple of times.
Who'd have guessed?
But it's funny though. It's not funny.
Well, I want to change the subject, and I'm the Gillmor, so I'll do it.
Okay, it's your game.
And you're
Thanks.
one of them.
I'd like to talk about last week or the week before, whichever it was. I was talking with Brent Leary, that guy right there. And he was talking about how he needed 30 minutes to get off.
What? 30 minutes? Holy mackerel.
Don't interrupt. Unfortunate
There was
time
too
for you
much
to
of a
interrupt
break
my
there.
sentence.
30 minutes?
To get off
Whoa.
the show because he wanted to watch the Rams game. Now, this is my setup here. So I was, kind of made fun of him a little bit about that. Well, you really need 30 minutes to just keep sitting where you're sitting? And he said yes. And then after the show, I actually watched this Rams game. And it was one of the most thrilling football games that I've seen in like 40 years.
How many?
And then it was followed by an even more thrilling game.
I was just going to ask you, how many football games have you seen in 40 years? Just
Two
Well, two.
yeah, okay.
in the last in the last.
That's not right.
So no,
Well, I mean, there are some games that play out as though they have been plotted by screenwriters
Yeah.
for maximum drama, for maximum suspense, for maximum nail biting, and for all kinds of moral and character development. The only thing missing from these games is we don't get to hear the locker room talk in the halftime. But that's the only difference between these games and an
I
action.
never got to hear that in the past.
No,
I
in
mean,
a
this was just
screenplay.
like-
In a screenplay, you would go into the locker room and you would hear the coach and the quarterback giving the
Rudy.
pep talk. That we don't get. But other than that, in terms of gameplay, on the field gameplay, these games were amazingly dramatic.
And the ratings agreed with you. They were some gigantic numbers. They were very similar to numbers that you would have seen years ago when you got 30 plus million people in
45 million.
overnights.
It was like
I'm-
45 million.
Yeah, I
people.
was talking of the overnights were astounding. By the second or third day, when you get second or third day numbers, which include replays and that sort of thing, it went up into the 40 millions. Those were the kinds of numbers, by the way, were pretty standard for NFL in the maybe early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, only because there weren't that many places to go and watch an NFL game. They were astounding numbers.
So I therefore apologize, Brent. You indeed needed the 30 minutes.
Well,
I
what did you do?
Let
What
me ask
did
a
you
question.
do?
May I ask a question about
Yeah.
this? What did you do for that 30 minutes to prepare?
Exactly. My
Well,
question.
that-
exactly.
that's what I was
Why not start at the
joking about.
kickoff? Why not start at the kickoff? What was the 30 minutes all about?
Who are you
Popcorn.
talking to?
I'm talking to Brett Leary.
Actually, it usually goes up to an hour, which will probably be this upcoming, because the NFC Championship, man. You don't want anybody around. Well, this is me. I'm kind of different, apparently. I gotta gear myself up not to be too frustrated. Which, when your team is up 27-3 or 27-6, ain't that hard. But when your team blows a 21-point lead, then it gets a bit frustrating. Anyway, it's a weird thing. I mean, I've been a Rams fan since I've been 5 years old. I don't have quite the attachment to any other thing other than Prince, I think, Prince music. Than that. I mean, I've got favorite teams in other sports. They can come and go. I like certain things. I like certain kinds of music. Yeah, it's pretty good. But for whatever reason, I think everybody has their one thing, and my one thing has always been the Rams. I don't know why it became like that.
Well,
That's not an answer to Michael's.
no, I
and
mean,
my
what's
question.
it 30? Is it 30 minutes of meditation?
I gotta
Is it 30 minutes? Is it 30 minutes of reviewing stats? What do you do for 30
Do you
minutes?
make popcorn? Do you put the beers out in some kind of order?
All right. Some people know not to even think about contacting me. So I had to enforce what I call the no comment zone. So I don't want to hear from anybody. I don't want nobody calling me. I don't want anything getting in my way of yelling at the TV. All right. I mean, some people ask me, would you ever do a live stream of you just watching the game so we can? I'm like, hell no, I'm not doing that. I don't really want people to see me in a certain way. You know?
Hey, that's a good idea. That's like those guys.
So the
that
correct
heard Prince.
answer.
That's like that
So the
kid that heard
correct
Prince.
answer is A, meditation.
No.
No,
Brent,
it's
you're-
getting geared up. It's like I can't really get in the way. It's just
I think you
kinda
should
too
shoot
embarrassing.
yourself gearing up.
no,
And
no,
post
no.
that.
I don't want people. Look, my sister, and she's known forever. Don't bother me, unless there's some kind of an extreme emergency. I don't want to hear from you. I don't want to hear, oh, it's going great, because so many times it's been going great and then all of a sudden it goes to hell. So that gets me irritated. A lot of stuff just gets me irritated. So I don't want to be around people when I'm in that level of frustration and irritation. And it doesn't matter. People are like, well, does the no comment zone end early if your guys are up big? Like, hell no. Exhibit
I'd like
A
to see that.
last week, so people are like,
One other question. How do you spend your time during halftime? Do you watch the TV coverage or do you do something
oh,
else?
hell no. I mean, no. Depending on how the game is going, I might be out chopping wood or something, because I'll be extremely frustrated and I need to do something.
That was another thing that I enjoyed, which was the second game, the Kansas City game.
That was the best game I've ever seen, probably.
That's right. And
The best fourth quarter.
It was good from the beginning.
yeah, I watched that whole game because now I was on Brent's, thing.
Mahomes blew me away, and
So-
I'm not a.
So what I thought was exciting about this was they took the announcers completely out of the game.
Which is always good.
Yeah, because they would say, well, he's got 13 seconds. There's no way they can do it. He did it. And then, it's, they have to win the coin flip. They won the coin flip. It was just like, yeah, thanks for your help over there. And where's my mute button? But you don't want the mute button. You just want a selective mute button.
Hey, Brent, I've got to ask one question. So it sounds like you've got all this prep for a show, for a game. Does that mean you don't ever watch a Rams game with friends?
I've only done that once, and I didn't really want to do it, but I was staying at Paul's, so
Wow.
I had to watch.
This is a solo private event for you.
Look, the Rams were in the Super Bowl in the 1999 Super Bowl in Atlanta, and I lived 25 minutes from the stadium, and people were like, "I know you're going." I'm like, the last place I would be is at that game with all those damn people around me. So I need to kind of be alone. Even this house is just big enough for me to be here alone watching the Rams game. And I've got like 5 bedrooms.
Brent, I'm organizing a watch party for Sunday for the 49ers and the Rams. You want to join?
Yeah, enjoy it. Nope. I got really good friends that are Niners fans.
It's going to be interactive. We're going to have digital beer bottles to throw at each other and everything.
Oh, that sounds great. Now I literally say, knock yourselves out. I mean,
Hey, now that was a sneak peek.
Not anymore.
now can I?
No, it is. I dubbed this sneak peek.
So can I switch this a bit?
Please.
Because of all the stuff we just talked about, that's why if you are one of these streaming services, you have to have a live sport. Football is the best one, at least here, because look at all the ratings are through the roof. People are literally, huddled around TVs, watching, they're engaging in different ways. What else at that scale can do that? Appointment.
Nothing now.
Yeah, there's nothing. That's why every one of these streaming services is going to have to try to find a way to get in on some sort of a sporting event. Most people are not going to be able to get football, but something. I know, like internationally, it's the other football, but there's nothing like it. Even live music events don't get like this.
No.
Frank's newsletter had a citation a couple days ago about the USFL. What was it? The thing that stood out for me was that it's going to be simulcast by 2 different networks at the same time.
Yes, it's going to be simulcast on, I think, Fox and NBC. What I didn't know was, that's the reason I posted it. I thought it was interesting. Didn't make it clear whether that was going to continue, A, or B, whether is it the USFL or it's the XFL. and whether that would continue. But if it did continue and it was being simulcast on Fox and Peacock, for example, that would give Peacock a real online boost with a big sporting event. And, there was a big story today that about Peacock spending like $2 billion for content. That actually puts them in a place where they could have enough money to spend on a live sporting event. Nobody said what they're spending it on. They're just saying they're spending it on content.
Well, this is just opinion, not fact. But I think that Peacock isn't going to make it.
I actually don't disagree with you unless they grab a hold of some big sporting event like Tuesday Night Football. If there's but I don't know that an XFL
they have the English Premier League, which
yes.
is now a big audience.
But there's a problem with Peacock in that they only have a small number of paid subscribers. There's a huge churn at Peacock right now. People are still trying to figure out whether that's somewhere they want to be. I think right now that Paramount Plus has already gone over Peacock. I think Discovery Plus has also done the same. And it almost feels like Peacock needs something other than that.
Well, they've got Yellowstone.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, but it's interesting if you look at what works and what doesn't. It feels as if you either have got the HBO Max, Apple TV Plus kind of Netflix content portfolio where it's really a lot of excellence, and then you can do other things around it. And in the case of Paramount Plus, they've got, it's kind of Star Trek, really. And in the case of Peacock, you struggle to know what it is.
Yeah.
That's true.
It's this whole
Well,
conversation.
they'll be getting a boost next week because they have the Olympics.
Yeah.
So,
That's another conversation.
NBC has the Olympics franchise across all their platforms, including Peacock, and they can do things with Peacock that they can't do on their over-the-air network or their cable networks.
When we were promoting the Olympics, when the first time NBC got the big contract, it really was at the upfront. It was, and NBC has the Olympics until you die. Now it's got the Olympics until you die, and across all these platforms. I was thinking about the issue of all the different platforms that those of us who are crazy, Keith, about getting these platforms and paying for these platforms are doing exactly the same thing on the audio side with Apple Music and with Spotify and with Amazon Music and with Tidal and there's just a whole bunch of these things. Now, add all that up, Dennis, I'm sure you would go out and buy all of them.
Well, if the catalog was split, let's say Lou Reed was on Apple Music and REM or The Doors were on Spotify, that's kind of the TV landscape. It's split catalogs, but with music, it's one catalog everywhere. So
except for Neil Young.
Except for Neil Young, and honestly, much as I love him, I wouldn't pay a separate subscription just for his music.
Well, I would drop one for his music because I also we have the family plan for Apple Music, which is fabulous.
Yeah.
There was another thing, probably in Frank's newsletter, that I thought was interesting. If not, it should be in his newsletter, which is that what is the name of the newsletter company? Substack. Substack has announced the ability to insert and store videos on their newsletter platform.
Yeah, that was, I think I read that the day before yesterday. I posted it, I believe, yesterday.
So at the risk of saying big deal, that's a big deal.
Yeah,
I agree. I like that one. That sounds interesting. I'm gonna have to look into that.
Yeah, it's kind of merging the the so-called Clubhouse conundrum with the podcast thing that we're now seeing. I think the beginning of the end of these big what's the word for having a something solely on your platform?
Exclusive?
Yeah. I think that the exclusive model, according to another, I read Frank's newsletter constantly. Another post indicated that podcast listening has stalled at 25%.
On Spotify.
Of people,
No,
of what?
just
25%
across the board. Yeah, on Spotify. Tina's right.
On Spotify. Okay.
Yeah, the economics of that podcasting play around exclusive content may not be working.
I always find myself very challenged with podcasts because I don't listen to any podcasts because I just haven't got the time. But Jenny, my wife, does. She's found this new British one. It's called Upfront or something. It's kind of like the open debate about anything. So they debate everything, but it's run by good people and it's kind of entertaining. And I was listening to it in the car yesterday with her, and it's really good. So there's obviously a lot of very, very good content, but who's got time for it? I don't know. I don't see that really is a a first tier medium podcasting. Somehow I think live audio is an exception to that because you can be spontaneous and dive in. And the pre-recording of a live audio is a bit like the pre-recording of a live sports game. I probably wouldn't go back and listen to it unless it'd have to be really, really important to me for me to do that.
A friend of mine does a podcast called Radio Retropolis. He's out in LA, and he has conversations wrapped around rebroadcasts of 1940s radio dramas, including Superman. And I can't even name them, but I remember listening to them. They were just pretty amazing 40s and 50s radio dramas. The Dark Knight has come across that kind of stuff. And then he breaks in and has a conversation. I find that to be really interesting and entertaining and actually bingeable. That's the only podcast stuff that I listen to. It's entertainment.
I'm a podcast listener. The thing about podcasts, like music, they have been historically cross-platform. People promote them as wherever you get your podcasts. So you can get them on Stitcher, you can get them on Apple Podcasts or wherever, or just download them from the website of the podcaster. But lately, over the past few years, people are trying to build exclusive podcast libraries, as Spotify did with Joe Rogan, and there seems to be a limit to that as a business model, because you're competing universally available podcasting with exclusive podcasting, and it doesn't seem like exclusive podcasting has made much headway. I could be wrong about that. It's my impression.
No, I think you're right. It's an awful lot like the big players in streaming versus the ones who aren't so big. It's
Barry Weiss was on.
Barry White.
Barry. What's she called?
I don't.
Just kidding.
Barry White was the guy.
Barry Weiss was on Real Time with Bill Maher last Friday. She was extremely good, by the way, together with this African-American gay congressman or representative. I forget his name. He was also really good. And it occurred to me that her business model should really be to write really good stuff for free and build a career on top of that, where she makes a lot of money given her reputation. And the subscription stuff to the newsletter, I subscribe for free, and I'm pretty much sure I get everything. So I don't know what the incentive is for someone to pay her.
Well,
I'm not sure what the incentive.
If you take a look at the Substack model, it seems to be successful precisely because it subsidizes free access to the platform with successful subscriptions.
Yeah.
And I have a question for Frank, which is, which would you say is going to be, well, put it this way. There's AVOD and what do those things stand for?
So advertiser video on demand,
that one.
Subscription video on demand, or a hybrid of AVOD, SVOD, which is happening out there now. So go ahead and either pay nothing for AVOD, or pay a small amount for AVOD, or pay a lot more and get no commercials. And that's SVOD.
Okay,
what's gonna win?
I think AVOD's going to be successful.
I absolutely agree.
All right, and I think that Spotify is going to be successful because it is effectively AVOD.
Spotify has AVOD and SVOD.
Yeah.
Yes, I understand, but what I'm saying is that I think that Spotify will continue to be successful because it has, for example, Neil Young used to have 60% of his streaming came from a hybrid network.
Yeah.
Right. So I think those models are going to work.
Yeah.
But I find the possibility of this Substack supported video to be just the kind of thing that may, effectively break through for not just huge audiences like, football games, but also for artists in what essentially would be a new record business.
Let me ask you, what is the difference between what Substack is doing by embedding and hosting videos, between that and putting in a link or a YouTube player to a video that's hosted by Google?
By the way, I was just you're exactly right, because you can do that on review anyway, which is something that I do on every.
We do that. The answer to the question is that what they say about this, what Substack says is that, we do this with the Gillmor Gang YouTube channel. We leave it unlisted so that it doesn't, create yet another bifurcation of the platform. We've only got 5 listeners anyway, so we're trying to keep it less confusing.
One per platform.
Exactly. But the
one for each of us.
But the point is that what they're offering with Substack is the ability to have something which they can control as a private channel.
Well, Steve, they're also offering.
You can go to it and you can find it. You can just right click on the embed on TechCrunch or wherever else that embed is used, and you can subscribe to the thing. It's not available for private subscription. So
but
I think those
Substack
combinations are significant.
Substack as a brand is like a tier above. So I think if you add a video layer to a brand that is a tier above, it gives that video that same elevated brand awareness kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think for in the case of Substack, it's not necessarily a new and exciting new thing. It's new for them, but it becomes something that may be worth more.
I think.
Agreed.
If I was to look at where I think this has to go, I start with we live in a multi-platform world. Like I've got in my newsletter, I've got 19 to 20,000 followers on Medium. I've got about 6,000 subscribers on LinkedIn. I've got 3,000 to 4,000 people who get my email newsletter from Review. I put the YouTube video in all of them. And if I was to look at the audience, I put all the links to point back to the website. That was theweek.com. So anyone clicks on a link, I track it at my website. Now, would I use something other than a YouTube embed for video? I don't see why I would need to. The YouTube embed works perfectly well. However, if Substack would move to closer to a restream, where you've got text, audio, and video, and you can broadcast live and you do video on demand afterwards for the content, that gets way more interesting. The integration of video then becomes, it's better than YouTube. So although you could do that with YouTube if you can hack it to be live, but it's work to do that. So I think it ends up being that these are live broadcasting platforms with personalities that can choose to use video, audio, text, or whatever they want.
I agree with your assessment of the additional value. I also think that Frank's point about, if I understood it, about the sort of premium product bootstrapped from this environment. That is why I think RSS, slowly but surely became less significant to the audience, is because when social came along, when Twitter and Facebook came along, RSS did not absorb some of that energy. And I think that what Substack is doing is absorbing some of that energy, and it's going to be a significant, I think we'll look back at this. I think it'll also absorb live audio, because fundamentally, when you're doing a really interesting live audio show on Clubhouse or Spaces, so what if there's a camera there? In other words, it's not about video or audio. It's about this experience, the experience of watching or listening to Adam McKay, is that his name?
Mhm.
The director of Don't Look Up. This was just enthralling. To be able to hear creators at the Hollywood level talking about the inspiration coming from improvisations created by actors in the moment, and how that was integrated with a scripted film, as a former filmmaker or maybe a future one. This was just, it was like watching, reading the conversation between Truffaut and Hitchcock. This was an epical moment in the creative process. And I think that this little thing, I don't know why Brent finds it interesting, but I do know why I find it interesting.
Well, how is it more or less interesting than a director commentary on a DVD or Blu-ray?
Well, I have a DVD player. I haven't used it in 10 years. That's the,
But it's there's no innovation here except for the platform of making it available through Clubhouse.
it's like what
it's
Louis
going on for
C.K.
decades.
would say. It's like what Louis C.K. talked about with the chair in the sky. It may not be an innovation, but the combination of a chair, the sky, and the ability to be able to talk back to the cloud it's a huge innovation.
I think that that's the key. We're talking about bringing all of these different kinds of things together into one place. An example of that, when you were talking about, how RSS is sort of come and gone, I find myself now using RSS every single day with my newsletter because it's easier for me to have. Now, look, finding an RSS feed and zillions of lines of code is actually work, but I find it, I put it in my newsletter, and I'm easily able to look at something that has automatically renewed itself every day or every few minutes or whatever it is, so that I have an opportunity to get more material to bring it in. So there'll be video and there'll be audio and there'll be text. I think the text side of Substack with video is going to be a much better experience than trying to read text on YouTube with a video. That's a horrible experience. But I imagine that they will somehow someday say, hey, you know what? We have this thing already. Why don't we just make it better? And it's really a matter of combining all of these media together and then offering them to people who will determine on their own which of those media they want to use.
Yeah. Can I go in a different direction again?
Sure.
Please.
I got two different directions, actually. NFT profiles on Twitter. Any thoughts on that?
I think that's complete bullshit. No,
Ponzi scheme. It's a Ponzi scheme.
I don't care about it. I know that Dennis feels strongly about that, but I don't care about that. I just care about the fact that they're putting it on Twitter. They're putting it on Twitter as a commercial. Hey, you can get this now.
Yeah.
It's like a force-fed upsell. I mean, who the hell needs that?
It's also a complete undermining of what is interesting about NFTs. I mean,
well, that would be all right.
And NFTs, NFTs are not meant to be automatically produced, pixelated art. That an NFT is a way of owning a digital artifact that is in and of itself worth something or valuable, and it's a certificate that proves you own it. That's it. So to apply it to this is kind of crazy, but it's working. I mean, you could go on these NFT sites now, and there's lots and lots of NFTs that, you know, are valued at less than $10 that people are trading.
So are you in favor of them coming into your Twitter feed, which you don't have a pro account?
I do
Yeah.
actually.
But I'm saying one does not have a pro account. They still get this commercial that says, "Hey, kids, look what you can get now."
Yeah, no, I'd rather not see that. And I'd rather see somebody's picture on their profile than an NFT. That said, I don't mind if they put an NFT, it's fine. I might not find it very appealing personally, but it's up to them.
So Brent, that was one. What was the other one?
Anybody catch Apple's earnings yesterday? Was
Oh
it yesterday?
boy.
They made
Wow.
$125 billion in one quarter.
Oh. Woo.
I mean, that's, and I know Frank and I have helped along that with our new MacBook Pros. And Frank, did you get one too? Or Keith? did you-
Yes, but it hasn't arrived yet. It's going to be here sometime between Monday and Friday of next week. So I am currently looking at this old MacBook Pro of mine right now as though it was a trash can.
Just waiting for that new one to come. I mean,
Like,
that annual run rate is 500 billion for, I mean, it's just unbelievable. And then they got even better news, I think, at least, when Nvidia backed away from the ARM deal. And I don't know, Apple is maybe the most fascinating company there is out there now.
Why do you think that was good news to back away from the ARM deal?
I think Nvidia with ARM would have been a really interesting competitor to what they're doing with their own.
Oh, so you mean it was good news for Apple?
I think so.
Hmm.
And I think it may actually make them rethink their metaverse strategy. I could be wrong, but I found that really interesting. They had a really good week, I think.
yeah, but the NASDAQ didn't.
Well, the NASDAQ overall didn't, but Apple went up after hours.
Yeah, no. I get
Well,
your point.
It's only up 3%, which is interesting given how well they did. And I mean, we probably don't want to talk about the market too much, but there's an unspoken significant correction happening in the market.
Yeah.
Good. I don't know that it's unspoken.
The other thing about
It's-
Apple is that traditionally they go down after the news because the good news is usually anticipated and priced in,
Yeah.
and to have them go up after the news is even more significant.
Well, they were signaling that they were going to have an impact as a result of the chip shortage,
Yeah.
but evidently they blew right through that.
Doesn't seem to be that big a problem.
Nah. Now I'd buy another one right now if I could, so that I could have one in the other room.
Microsoft
Okay,
had a
well-
great deal earnings too, by the way.
All right, so we got 3 minutes until the end of the show for at least two people. So let's try and wrap it up. Let's start with Keith Tier.
I almost don't have a summing up. The main focus for me this week has been on all the happenings in venture capital, which are significant. Most importantly of which is the news that Tiger Global, which is setting the pace, has reduced valuations and withdrawn term sheets from private companies in light of what's going on in the public markets, which is worth keeping an eye on.
Brent Leary.
Yeah, one that I thought we'd all be talking about. Did Joe Biden give Stephen Breyer something for Christmas? Because it seems like his announcing retirement was the perfect time for Biden to stop all the negative news. And all of a sudden, it kind of gives him a chance to, look strong and actually do something and not have other people like Joe Manchin or Kristen Sinema to, although I guess they could technically sing them, but it doesn't sound like they're going to sing them. But it feels like of all the times for Stephen Breyer to announce his resignation, couldn't have been any better timing for Biden.
Dennis?
Um, We haven't talked about Ukraine. I think Ukraine is a big nothing burger, to borrow a phrase from the last administration. I think Biden has played this extremely well, and he won't get credit for it. But rather than succumbing to the bullies' efforts, he's stayed strong, resupplied, and now Putin doesn't know what to do. He's got to either pull back or attack, and he's completely lost the element of surprise. So I think he's in deep yogurt.
2 weeks ago, I know you, Dennis, said Russians will not invade, and I think that we agreed in a poll. Do we still feel that way?
I still feel that way. Want to take a quick poll?
Yeah, go ahead.
Who thinks the Russians will invade?
Looks like nobody. All right.
I still want to know.
Okay. All right. So, Michael, last thoughts?
Oh, I just want to slightly disagree with Dennis. I think Biden will get credit for it. I think the Ukraine situation, combined with what Brent brought up, the Supreme Court nomination, are all very good for Biden. And one other bit of new news, the 1/6 committee has sent subpoenas out to the phony electors. So that's another thing to keep your eye on over the next few weeks.
Yeah, they're going to wish they had done NFTs instead. All right. Frank, you've got 5 seconds.
All right. One thing that we didn't talk about in the Spotify story was that they pulled the plug on their customer service because of a flood of complaints over the Joe Rogan controversy, which I thought was interesting, that they were so flooded with people who, it didn't say in the story whether or not they were flooded with people who agreed with him or disagreed with him. It just said that they were flooded, and it just shut them down. One other thing
what I heard
Michael,
was that they had a flood to the part of the website where you canceled your account.
Okay. And the other thing, in addition to what you were saying, Michael, which looks pretty positive for Biden, if you take the market out of the equation, the U.S. economy is chugging away on all cylinders.
That's true. The latest numbers look really good.
Yes.
Now,
we just have to
take
deal
away
with it.
inflation, take away the market. See you, Brent.
Thanks,
Hey,
Brent.
I've got to go too, guys. See
Thanks,
ya.
Keith.
Bye.
Me too. Chow mein, people.
Yeah, I'll go
See you next
too.
week.
Thanks, Michael.
Okay. Did you wrap up the show yet?
No.
I'm trying.
Oh,
Well, go
okay.
We'll
I'll
wait
stay
for
till you
that.
wrap.
Yeah.
I have to go
All
buy
right.
toilet paper and bread for the blizzard.
Oh, well, good luck with that. I really, really mean that.
Why don't you say your goodbyes? See you again.
We'll talk.
Thanks to Frank. Thanks to Dennis. And special thanks to our producer and director, Tina Chase Gillmor.
Thank you. Thank you.
And
Michael, Keith, and Brent.
I just did that.
Oh, well, you didn't say Michael.
I did.
Chow mein, people.
Thanks, Michael.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. You get an extra one. Thanks, Michael.
I get an extra
That's
one. Well,
3.
thank you. Thank you.
All right.
And thanks, Tina.
Thank you, Tina. Bye-bye, people.
You were going to say?
Wait, is that the wow? This is a weird wrap up. Okay.
I might as well go now so you can wrap it.
There he
And
goes.
there was one.
All right.
All right. Well, we'll stop the stream.
No, not yet.
Oh.
Thanks to everybody who showed up and especially those who didn't. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.